All right, my friends, welcome to another video lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be discussing the construction of a simple call to action, or CTA. So what is a call to action? Well, let me just show you. Here at the end of the interview sequence, you can see what I've done. Let's play.
Keep being awesome. Peace.
So you can see this is a way to leave the viewer with information about the interview subject or whatever it is that might be important about their interview. So in this case, we've got our subject's name and his title once again, separated by a graphical element, in this case a simple line, and then his social media information, his hashtag, and his Instagram handle. So I'd like to break down the components of this so you can better understand what's going on here. So I'm going to zoom in a bit, and you can see that we've got several layers here. Let's start at the bottom. That's the background, this blurred background that we constructed out of an image that we got from our interview subject. That helps the text to stand out. And I chose this particular image because I was able to blow it up and use his body as a darker background. Again, helping that text to stand out. And then on the second level here, we've got all the text and the graphical element. And the thing that's kind of interesting about this is it's not the normal color for a graphic clip. Normally it would be pink. So why is it green? Well, that's because it's a very special kind of clip. In fact, it's not a clip at all. It's actually a sequence. This is a nest. And if I double click on it, you can see all of the clips inside that make up all these individual lines of text and the graphical element, that line there, are contained inside. Here's all the individual layers. And what I've done is collapse them into one clip that's actually a sequence. If you look in my project panel here, in my nests bin, you can see that CTA01, the same thing that happens when I double click on this, is located there. So if I double click it here, boom, there it is. And look, it's got the same exact icon as my sequences because it is actually a sequence. And the reason that I did this was so that I could collapse all of those individual elements and then treat them as one thing. And what I wanted to do with them was move them. You can see they're all moving together. So the nest function is how I was able to unify them. And then at the very top layer here, we have an adjustment layer that I have used as a way to fade the other two layers simultaneously without having to put cross dissolves on each one of them. So you can see the adjustment layer affects everything underneath it. So I can fade both of these elements at the same time just by fading the adjustment layer. Kind of cool. Little trick there. All right, so how did I do all this? Well, let's move this out of the way and get started. So first of all, I needed a background. So I went to my images string out here. Let's open that. And you can see I found this image that I hadn't yet used in the rest of the piece. So I just copied, Command or Control C, and pasted. And I want to make sure that it goes on my first video track, so I want to make sure that's active here. Remember, Premiere will assume that you want to paste something on the lowest number track that's available. And there it is. And here's the image as it is inherently. So to make that background, I'm going to manipulate the image and make it much larger. You can see here it's much larger. So with the image selected, I'm going to head up to the effect controls and use scale to blow it up. And I'll change the position as well, clicking on motion and then manipulating the image so that it kind of fits the frame the way I want it to. That's pretty good right there. And now I want to blur it. So I'm going to head over to my effects panel here and search for Gaussian blur, GAU, and there it is, Gaussian blur. And why do we use Gaussian blur? Because it's the best blur by far. Throw that on and adjust the best control in all of Premiere, blurriness. And let's blur that out. That looks pretty nice. All right, now, if you look at my end result here, I've done something else. See how much dimmer it is? I've actually adjusted its opacity so that it's darker. Because it's the bottom layer, there's nothing underneath it. So if I reduce its opacity, it'll actually become darker. So I'm going to reduce that. That's a nice muted kind of dark background here. That's pretty good. Okay, now we've got a substrate on which we can build our text. So the next step is to start that construction. And I'm going to start with our subject's name. Going to head over to the type tool and click on to the program monitor window here and begin typing. I'm going to do the same thing I did before. Where I had his first name in all caps and his last name all lowercase. And grab my selection tool. And I want to make sure that this is centered. Now, a trick for doing that is to turn on the safe margins. And then you can see there's a center control here that's exactly halfway between the entire graphic. I'm going to line it up with the center line here. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and click on my graphic and move it down to where I want it to go. Right about here or so. I'm going to twirl down text. And I'm going to change the size a little bit here. I think it's a little bit too big. I'm going to make it go down to 90. Now you can see I lost my centering there. That's because I didn't have it pre-centered here. If I'd have done that, it would have maintained the center. So back up to the center line here, and then clicking, holding down Shift and moving it to where I want it to be so it doesn't move side to side when I do that. And now I'm going to line up the clip here on the other clip here in my timeline. Bring my playhead back to the beginning. And before we go for the next level here, I want to change the font. Right now it's defaulted to Arial Black. And I happen to like Avenir Next. And that's what we used in his lower third too, so it might as well match. So I'm going to go to bold for that. That looks great. Okay. So now to construct the next layer, what I'm going to do, because I already have some of the settings that I like here. I have the centering, I have the right font, I'm close to the size that I want. I'm just going to copy this first layer. So I'm going to hold Option, click on it, and drag up. And now I've got a duplicate of that. Click on this layer, head up to the text layer itself, click on it, and then I get my control. And then again, I'm going to click, hold Shift, and drag it down to where I want it to be, about right there. And now I'm going to change the font. I'm going to go back to regular here and type in our subject's title in all caps, just like we did in the lower third, B-Boy. And I think I'm going to go for the vertical line like we did in the lower third rather than the slash I have in the other CTA example. I like the vertical line better. And there we go. And I'll switch back over to my selection tool so I can pull this down just a little bit. And I think it's a little too large. I'm going to bring it down just a hair here. Let's try that. That looks pretty good. I do want it to stick out a little bit on the sides because I'm kind of going for an ovular thing here with all of the elements where they kind of bow out in the middle and then come back. All right, so next element is going to be that line that's in the middle. You can see here in the example, this line. So I need a special panel for this. I cannot do this with the normal text controls. I need another panel that's called the Essential Graphics panel. So if you go up to Window, click on Essential Graphics, it'll launch this other panel, which usually appears here on the right. I don't like it there. I'm actually going to dock it over next to my effect controls because these are really controls to me. So I'm going to click and hold on the words Essential Graphics and pull this over until I get the thin purple line here at the top, not the green line, not the thicker purple line, not the giant purple box, but the thin purple line, and let go, and then resize this window here. And I'm going to go over to the Edit tab here, and you can see if I'm clicked on any of these elements here, it actually gives me controls for them too. But what I want to do is have none of them selected and create an entirely new item here using the new item icon, what I like to call the foldy piece of paper, because that's what it looks like. So I'm going to click on that and choose rectangle. Now I know we're making a line, but we need to do that using a rectangle. So as soon as I do that, it creates just this random box here. And I want to change it to white, the same color as the text. So I'm going to head over to the appearance controls here, click on fill, and pull it all the way down into the corner for white. Now I've got a white box. Now what I want to do is make this the length I want it to be, which is a little bit longer than B-Boy Breakdancer is here on either side. Okay. And then I want to make it a nice thin line. So pulling that in just like that, that looks pretty good. Now it's kind of difficult to control this when it's this small. So rather than try and grab it, I'm going to head to the effect controls with it selected and use the vector motion controls here and raise and lower it that way. So I'm going to use my vertical control here and just move it down slightly. There we go. That's pretty good. Okay, so we've got our line. Next thing is our subject's hashtag, his famous "Keep Being Awesome" hashtag. So I'm going to copy my B-Boy Breakdancer line, holding down Option, clicking, dragging up, letting go with the mouse, then with Option, and I get a nice copy. Now with that one selected, I'm going to click on the text line itself to give me control. Click, hold down Shift and drag it down. And I'm going to try and go for something that's about equidistant between the text that's above and the text that's below here. So the line looks centered. I'm going to double click in, enter edit mode, and type in our subject's hashtag. Keep being awesome. Love that. Love that positivity there. All right. So I think I want to make that slightly smaller. So I'm going to click on my selection tool here and then head over to the text control. And let's make this about 70, I think. And that looks a little bit better. And I'll bring it up slightly. Maintain that balance in space. Good. Okay, now we'll duplicate that layer so that we can enter our subject's Instagram handle. Again, holding down Option, clicking, holding, dragging up, producing that copy. And now I'm going to select that layer, click on the text control there, and click and hold down Shift and bring this down, maintaining alignment. And double click in, enter his handle at Bits Photography. And let's check how that looks. I think it's a little too close, so I'm going to pull it down just a little bit more. Yeah, I think that looks better. Click off of it here. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. So now what I want to do is bring all these graphical elements into unification to treat them as one thing. I want to collapse them and bring them together. So I'm going to select all of them except for the bottom layer because I don't want to move it. I only want to move the text and graphical element here on top of that background layer. So with all these selected, I'm going to right click and choose Nest. And I'm going to name this nest just like I named the one in my example, CTA, except I'm going to use 02 this time. Click OK. And you can see it's located randomly outside of any bin. So I'm going to hit my tilde key here while rolled over my project panel and pull that down into my nests bin. Excellent. Tilde again to get out. And you can see they've all been collapsed now into one thing that I can now manipulate as one item. So what I want to do is move this. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of that clip and head up to my effect controls, punch in a scale keyframe there at the beginning, head to the end, last frame of it there. And let's increase it by, say, 10%. Let's go 110 here. And let's check that movement, see what that looks like. Yeah, that's nice. It's subtle. It's in the same vein as the music and the vibe of the whole piece. I like that. Great. So now the next thing I need to do is fade both of these elements in and out. My text and graphic and my background. So rather than put cross dissolves on all four of the boundaries here of these clips, instead what I'm going to do is use an adjustment layer to control all of them at once. So I'm going to go to the new item icon down here, another foldy piece of paper, click on that and choose adjustment layer. And it comes up with a dialog box asking if I want it to be the same size as my sequence and the same frame rate, same pixel aspect ratio, and yes, I do. Just click OK on that. And you can see it is again located randomly outside of any bin. I'm going to put it in my graphics bin here. So I'm just going to drag that down into my graphics bin. You can see I've done this before. And pull that adjustment layer in and put it on top of my other two. There we go. Now, the magic. If I just select this and use Shift D to put in my default transition, which is a cross dissolve on both ends, you can see now both things are faded by this adjustment layer. It affects everything below it, giving me control of both of these elements as one thing. Pretty neat. All right, so let's check that.
Peace.
I like it, but I don't like the length of the fades. I think I want this one to be shorter, about half a second. So I'm going to go for 12 frames because we're in a 24 frame timeline here. That's half a second. And then this one, I think I want it to be twice as long. It's normally a second, so I'm going to go for 200, which Premiere interprets as 2 seconds. Boom. Now let's check that one more time.
Peace.
Yeah, I like that a lot better. Cool. All right, my friends. So that is creating a simple call to action, or CTA, using one of our subject's supplied images as a background, manipulating it with scale, blur, Gaussian blur that is, and then opacity, and then building a text and graphic package on top of that with multiple layers, then nesting those together as one item, and then putting a move on it just using simple scale, and then fading both of those elements in and out using an adjustment layer to control that. Good stuff. And that about does it for this video lesson, my friends. I'll see you again in the next one.